and on the issue of scams, which have uprooted the lives of too many of our constituents, their families, and friends, as we've already heard. The law enforcement resources and training INL and others are bringing to bear on the issue are irreplaceable, especially in the greater Mekong region. I'm interested in the complementary work your Bureau is doing to keep that technical cooperation on track in the Mekong region.
Welcome back to Freedom Forge, where we break down the hearings, policies, and decisions coming out of Washington and ask the questions that matter to everyday Americans. Before we get into today's exchange, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to Freedom Forge, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our latest coverage of Congress, government accountability, national security, and the decisions being made with your tax dollars. Today's Senate hearing focuses on a rapidly growing international problem: sophisticated scam operations that target Americans and other victims around the world. Lawmakers are examining what the State Department and other parts of the U.S. government are doing to combat cyber-enabled fraud, money laundering, and organized scam networks, particularly in Southeast Asia and the Mekong region. The discussion also expands into China, Americans facing detention or exit restrictions there, international cooperation, State Department resources, and the growing concern that criminal scam operations are simply moving from one country to another whenever authorities begin cracking down.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank you and the ranking member for the topic of today's hearing. Assistant Secretary DeSombre, before I get to my question on scams, since I have you here, I wanted to take a brief moment to draw your attention to the many Americans, including my constituents, known to be detained and under exit bans in the PRC. I appreciate the State Department's long-running collaboration with my office on several of these cases, but I was disappointed that the White House refused to elevate these cases to the highest level during May's Trump-Xi summit. Before President Trump's September meeting with President Xi, I'd like you to provide my office with an update on how the administration is planning to raise these cases, including for my impacted constituents from Illinois, ahead of the next summit. Will you circle back with me and my team on our efforts to bring these Americans home?
Senator, obviously the detention and exit bans of American citizens in China and elsewhere is a top priority of the State Department. I commit that we will work with you on trying to elevate those.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to thank you for your personal engagement on the issue of scams, which have uprooted the lives of too many of our constituents, their families, and friends, as we've already heard. The law enforcement resources and training INL and others are bringing to bear on the issue are irreplaceable, especially in the greater Mekong region. I'm interested in the complementary work your Bureau is doing to keep that technical cooperation on track in the Mekong region, even when capacity gaps, political capture, or local corruption overwhelm our partners' willingness to solve the problem. How are regional mechanisms helping you keep going when bilateral work stalls, and what formats are you finding most useful for these conversations?
Thank you, Senator. Very good question, and we're working, obviously, as you indicate, both bilaterally and multilaterally. Mm-hmm. I was honored to host the senior official meetings on the U.S.-Mekong partnership, 6 weeks ago or so, in Jakarta, and scam centers were top of mind to all of the countries there. And so I think we're seeing a lot more increased attention in the countries of Cambodia, Burma, Laos themselves, because more of them, their own citizens, are being scammed as well. So we're working through MUSP, we're also working through ASEAN, and also working through APEC, I think, are the three sort of multilateral organizations that we're working through most closely. We also have stood up our own, as we mentioned earlier, this 13-member contact group, which includes many of the ASEAN members, but also many of the international partners of ours, to really try to focus on the enforcement and information sharing aspects of it.
Would you agree that in addition to what we've stood up ourselves, that our partners do like to talk together through trusted mechanisms like MUSP or ASEAN?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So knowing what you know now about the importance of regional forums for rooting out scams, would you recommend greater resourcing to EAP for multilateral engagements?
I think I'll understand we have substantial resources for those in general. So, I think the budget requests have been put in, but we definitely use those multilateral resources and are very significantly supporting ASEAN, APEC, and others.
Are you going to be the first administration official to come before this committee to say that you couldn't do better with more resources? You're not saying that, are you?
Somebody call the Guinness World Book of Records.
I was just going to say, I think this is your opportunity to say, yes, we need more resources. Look, we once had exactly those dedicated resources, right? Until Secretary Rubio callously eliminated EAP's Multilateral Affairs Directorate last summer. You're his eyes and ears on this topic, and everything you're saying reinforces his choice was wrong. I appreciate your candor, and I hope we can keep engaging and advocate together for resources that your bureau deserves. And I know, I think you need more resources so that you can do a better job, and I applaud you for the work that you're doing, especially in partnership with the Thai policing forces. And as you're rightly recognized today, the problem starts in the Mekong subregion, but it doesn't end there. And more we're seeing scammers expelled from Southeast Asia, setting up fresh operations in Palau, Tonga, Papua New Guinea, and beyond, where scams pose a fresh slate of challenges. Law enforcement departments are often smaller. Their critical positions are just one or few people deep in some of these nations. Mr. Bedard, I don't want to be caught up playing whack-a-mole for the next decade. What is the State Department doing right now to preempt the migration of scam operations?
Thank you for the question, Senator. And I want to briefly touch on your question regarding budget. INL's request for fiscal year 27 is $30 million over its fiscal year 25 request for the Southeast Asia region alone to address cyber scams. So we're certainly putting more emphasis and more effort in the region to address those concerns. INL has a global budget as well. We are working on this throughout the world. As I mentioned, we have active programs in Southeast Asia, Africa, South Asia, the Western Hemisphere, the Pacific Islands, in the Middle East. We're trying to meet this problem where we find it with the appropriate level of resources to stop the losses to American citizens.
But we've lost resources that was going to the Bureau for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, which could be an organization that helps with multilateral directorate relationships, right?
Well, I think as I've said before, the change in the structure hasn't affected our ability to execute on the mission within EAP.
Can you finish your answer, Mr. on what are you doing to prevent the migration of scammers to other places, especially the PICs?
We work with our foreign law enforcement partners across the world. What we are doing globally, we provide roughly $20 million in training and technical assistance on money laundering, cyber-enabled crime. We have a global law enforcement network that can embed U.S. cybercrime prosecutors in countries where this issue is raised. And we want to build that technical capacity so that these foreign law enforcement partners can work better with U.S. law enforcement, but also with other regional partners on this issue.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank both of you for your testimony today. Mr. Bedard, I want to ask you.
Senator Tammy Duckworth begins her questioning by raising an issue that deserves serious attention regardless of party. Americans who are detained or reportedly subject to exit bans in the People's Republic of China. She asks the State Department official for an update on what the administration intends to do ahead of President Trump's expected September meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. And on this issue, there should be very little partisan disagreement. When American citizens are detained overseas or prevented from leaving a foreign country, the United States government should treat their cases seriously. Protecting American citizens abroad is one of the most basic responsibilities of American diplomacy. The State Department official responds by saying that the detention and exit bans involving American citizens in China and elsewhere are a top priority and commits to working with Duckworth's office. Good. But Americans should always judge Washington by results rather than promises. We hear the words top priority constantly in congressional hearings. The important question is what happens afterward. Are these cases being raised directly with foreign governments? Are senior officials demanding answers? Is the United States using its diplomatic leverage effectively? And most importantly, are Americans coming home? Those are the measurements that ultimately matter. Duckworth then moves into the central subject of the hearing, international scam operations. This is an issue that Washington cannot afford to dismiss as simply another problem happening somewhere overseas. The victims are here. They are Americans. People can lose savings that took decades to build. Families can be financially devastated by increasingly sophisticated fraud operations that cross international borders and exploit weaknesses in banking systems, telecommunications networks, social media platforms, cryptocurrency infrastructure, and law enforcement cooperation. And the international nature of these organizations makes stopping them extremely difficult. A scammer does not necessarily need to operate from the United States to target somebody sitting in Illinois, Texas, Florida, California, or anywhere else in the country. That changes the law enforcement challenge completely. Duckworth asks how regional partnerships can keep anti-scam operations moving when cooperation with individual governments becomes difficult because of corruption, political problems, or inadequate law enforcement capacity. That is actually one of the most important questions in this entire exchange. Because criminals understand borders. They understand jurisdiction. They understand that American law enforcement cannot simply walk into another sovereign country and make arrests. They understand that some countries have highly capable police forces while others may have limited resources. And sophisticated criminal organizations will naturally look for weaknesses. The State Department official explains that the United States is working both bilaterally and multilaterally. He points to cooperation through the Mekong-U.S. Partnership, ASEAN, and APEC, along with a 13-member contact group focused heavily on enforcement and information sharing. That sounds reasonable. Information sharing matters tremendously when criminal organizations operate across several countries. Imagine investigators discovering that money was stolen from Americans, transferred through accounts in one jurisdiction, converted into another financial instrument somewhere else, and eventually controlled by people operating from another country. No single police department can solve that problem alone. International cooperation becomes essential. But this is where Washington also needs discipline. Every time government officials create another partnership, initiative, task force, contact group, or international program, taxpayers deserve to know what that organization is actually accomplishing. Government loves acronyms. Washington can produce committees faster than almost anything else. But Americans should demand measurable results. How many criminal organizations were disrupted? How much stolen money was recovered? How many Americans were protected? How many foreign law enforcement agencies became capable of independently investigating these operations? How many perpetrators were prosecuted? Those numbers tell us far more than the number of meetings government officials attended. Then we get one of the more revealing moments of the hearing. Duckworth begins questioning whether the State Department's East Asia and Pacific Bureau needs additional resources for multilateral engagement. The official says they already have substantial resources. And Duckworth jokingly asks whether he is about to become the first administration official to appear before the committee and say that he couldn't do better with more money. The room laughs. It's a funny moment. But underneath that joke is a very serious issue about Washington. Government agencies almost always have an incentive to request more money. More programs, more employees, more offices, more funding, and sometimes additional resources are absolutely justified. If investigators are dealing with international criminal organizations stealing enormous amounts of money from Americans, Congress should make sure law enforcement has the tools necessary to fight them. But taxpayers should never accept the idea that spending more automatically means accomplishing more. Those are two completely different things. Congress should ask a basic question whenever an agency requests additional funding. What exactly are taxpayers purchasing? If Congress gives you another $10 million, $20 million, or $30 million, what measurable improvement should Americans expect? That is how budgeting should work. Duckworth then criticizes Secretary of State Marco Rubio's decision to eliminate the East Asia and Pacific Bureau's Multilateral Affairs Directorate during a previous restructuring. She argues that the official's testimony demonstrates why those resources were valuable. That's her argument. But there's another side that deserves consideration. Eliminating or restructuring a government office does not automatically mean eliminating the mission that office performed. Governments reorganize departments constantly. The real question is whether the mission is still being accomplished effectively. And interestingly, the official pushes back. He says the structural change has not affected their ability to execute the mission within the East Asia and Pacific Bureau. That statement matters. Because if officials can accomplish the same mission with a leaner organizational structure, taxpayers should welcome efficiency. If they cannot, Congress should demand evidence showing where capabilities have deteriorated. That's the debate we should be having, not simply whether an office exists. Ask whether the work gets done. A criminal sitting thousands of miles away can potentially reach an American household without ever entering the United States. That means America's defenses must adapt. But adaptation does not mean giving government unlimited money or unlimited authority. It means making government smarter. Congress should demand coordination between federal agencies. It should demand cooperation with capable international partners. It should demand aggressive pursuit of criminal financial networks. And it should demand transparency about whether taxpayer-funded programs are actually working. There's also something refreshing about parts of this hearing. Even though there are obvious political disagreements, lawmakers and administration officials are discussing a problem that has real consequences for ordinary people. Washington spends enormous amounts of time fighting over political theater. But protecting Americans from organized international fraud is a legitimate function of government. The disagreement should be about how to do it effectively. Duckworth believes the State Department needs stronger multilateral infrastructure. Administration officials argue that restructuring has not prevented them from carrying out the mission. Fine. Then show the results. Congress has oversight authority. Use it. Ask for numbers. Ask for timelines. Ask which countries are cooperating. Ask where cooperation is failing. Ask how much money has been recovered. Ask how many operations have been disrupted. Ask whether Americans are safer today than they were a year ago. That is what congressional oversight should look like. And regarding China, the same principle applies. If American citizens are detained or subject to exit restrictions, their government should advocate for them vigorously. When American leaders sit across the table from foreign leaders, the safety and rights of American citizens should never be treated as an afterthought. America's diplomatic relationships matter. Trade matters. Security matters. Regional stability matters. But American citizens matter too. The government should never forget whom it represents. The scam issue also gives us another reminder about personal responsibility. Government can investigate criminal networks. Banks can strengthen fraud detection. Technology companies can improve security. International partners can share intelligence. But criminals will continue looking for new ways to manipulate people. Americans also need better awareness about suspicious investment opportunities, impersonation scams, unexpected financial requests, and people demanding immediate transfers of money. Education is part of national resilience. The harder Americans become to scam, the less profitable these operations become. But education alone isn't enough. The criminal organizations themselves need to face consequences. Their financial infrastructure needs to be targeted. Their organizers need to be identified. Foreign governments need to understand that allowing large criminal networks to operate freely within their territory damages their relationship with the United States. And Washington needs to make sure that every dollar dedicated to fighting these organizations actually contributes to that mission. That is the bigger takeaway from this hearing. International scams are not simply annoying phone calls anymore. They are increasingly sophisticated criminal enterprises capable of crossing borders, exploiting technology, and targeting Americans from thousands of miles away. The United States needs a serious response. But serious does not simply mean expensive. It means effective. It means accountable. It means coordinated. It means putting American citizens first. Whether we're talking about Americans facing restrictions in China or families losing their savings to international fraud networks, Washington's responsibility should be clear. Protect Americans, defend American interests, and make sure taxpayers get results from the institutions they fund. And when Congress holds hearings like this, viewers should pay attention not only to which politician delivered the best line or created the biggest viral moment. Listen to the numbers. Listen to the commitments. Listen to what officials say they are doing. Then come back 6 months or a year later and ask whether they actually delivered. Because accountability should not end when the cameras turn off. That's what we believe in here at Freedom Forge. Government should answer to the people who pay for it and the citizens it exists to serve. If you found this breakdown informative, hit the like button and subscribe to Freedom Forge for more coverage of congressional hearings, government accountability, national security, and the political battles shaping America's future. And let us know what you think about this hearing. Should Washington put additional resources into fighting international cyberscam networks? Or should existing agencies first be required to demonstrate stronger results with the resources they already have? Thanks for watching Freedom Forge.